Welcome to another episode of the Black Millennial Investors Money Mindfulness Podcast. Today we have a very special guest joining us, someone who has made significant strides both on and off the football field. Our guest is none other than Roman Oben, the NFL's Vice President of Football Development. Roman is at the forefront of driving the strategic direction of the league's development programs across multiple platforms. Through college engagement and work with HBCUs and college outreach, his work is reshaping the landscape of football, ensuring that the sport continues to thrive and evolve. Roman's journey is nothing short of inspiring. As a former NFL player, he brings a wealth of experience and insight into the game, but his contributions extend far beyond the field. He has been instrumental in reshaping how collegiate student athletes are educated on NFL preparedness, both on and off the field. His dedication to the development of young athletes and his commitment to the sports make him a true leader in the football community. In this episode, we'll dive into Roman's career, his vision for the future of football, and the valuable lessons he's learned along the way. We'll also explore how his work impacts financial literacy and preparedness for athletes and young adults, which aligns perfectly with our mission here at the Black Millennial Investors Money Mindfulness Program. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be inspired by the incredible journey of Roman Oben. Let's welcome him to the show. Roman, welcome to Money Mindfulness Podcast. It's a pleasure to have you.
It's a pleasure to be here. Great to see you again, and I'm happy to dive in and communicate with the folks listening in.
Great. Thanks so much. Well, so to kick things off, I think I always like to start, our show with giving our listeners a bit about background, a little bit about your origin story, if you will, and as well as for you, your journey from being an NFL player to your current role as an NFL executive. So if you could, give us a little background, it would be great.
So just, I have a pretty long background. I was born in Cameroon, West Africa, grew up in Washington, D.C., came to the States with my uncle to join my mom. So raised with a single mom in the DC era. And if anyone knows, like any major city in the 80s, in the urban areas, we all have that urban story. But I think my childhood was definitely balanced. I was involved in a lot of different activities. And football, I didn't play football until 10th grade. I was just big guy. Hey, you got to come out for the football team. 2 years later, you're getting letters from all these schools and stuff, and ended up at University of Louisville, where I graduated with an econ degree, and then was a third-round pick for the NFL, and I played for 4 different teams over a 12-year period: Giants, Cleveland, Tampa, and the Chargers. They were the San Diego Chargers, obviously the LA Chargers now. And then I got done playing in 2008, which, as you know, that fall 2008 wasn't exactly the best time in history to be moving into a second career. Yeah. People were losing their mortgages and their shirts off their backs and all kinds of things. And so it just gave me an opportunity to just double down on just processes. And I just got into like leadership principles and things like that. And then I started working, I had a job with CBS selling advertising. I worked on a few startups in business development. And then I think probably that's 08, 09. So by 2014, I applied for a job as director of player health and safety at the NFL, and then I've been here since January of 2015, solving a multitude of just complex issues that affect our sport and the future of our game.
Well, so with that transition, so what inspired you to make the transition from playing with the NFL to, to your role, working a leadership role and with the NFL, and they're the major corporation or a major institution in the U.S. That also advocates for youth football and education. So, what was your inspiration? And I know that you play ball. So, what inspired you to do the job that you're currently in?
I think at that time when we were dealing with the negative health and safety discussion about concussions and that word concussion almost defined football. I had 2 kids. They were in second grade and kindergarten, I think, at that time when I got done playing. And I always had this burning passion about what would the game be like for them when they get to high school. I started seeing parents and that helicopter parent thing. I just started noticing some things from parents of older kids, say that middle school. And I said, if I could work on something that allows me to put a business strategy behind solving some of these issues, you talk about scalability across the league. And so it gave me an opportunity and a platform to just focus on what I was passionate about. You're impacting the community, but it's in a corporate environment. And so not a lot of opportunities to do that. And obviously working for the NFL, it's the most powerful pro sports league, a lot of visible work. And I was able to take that scope of work from what was a youth football discussion and evolve that into managing stakeholder relationships, working with partners, scaling initiatives, using the league calendar, Pro Bowl, Combine, Super Bowl, Draft, Hall of Fame, all those things to amplify some of our work. And then I eventually, probably 4 years later, started to grow the college outreach strategy and did a lot of work on that college to pro pathway, as you mentioned in the intro. And the last 3 years, I've actually announced draft picks at the NFL draft in the later rounds because I'm working with a lot of college outreach. So it's almost an entrepreneurial role because you get to, again, a lot of competing interests, a lot of evolving initiatives, but you get to put a strategy behind it and really feel good about what problem you're solving when you go to bed at night. So it's people ask me what I do every day. I was like, depending on which day.
Right, exactly.
And then obviously there's travel to the teams and things like that. But it's good work, and I love what I do.
Well, working with any big corporation, I mean, it's one of the critical components, I think, is, initiatives that spearhead the engagement of stakeholders. And I'm specifically interested for our audience, what initiatives have you led or spearheaded to engage stakeholders to drive strategy related to diversity and inclusion in the NFL? I mean, are there initiatives there?
Yeah, so we've worked specifically to drive. I'll give you an example: the HBCU Combine. And so there's a regular scouting combine that most people are familiar with. That's in Indianapolis every year. We worked to work with the HBCU Legacy Bowl, the Black College Hall of Fame, Doug Williams, and some of those folks to make sure that HBCU students aren't underrepresented when it comes to evaluating. All the NFL players don't come from Alabama, LSU, Ohio State, some of those schools.
State.
If you go back long enough, a lot of African American players, especially in the Midwest and down south, didn't come from those schools. They came from HBCUs. So we wanted to make sure there was a balance in the narrative about what type of schools are producing NFL players. Obviously now with the transfer portal and some of the things that kids can start off at a small school, do well, transfer up, or start off at a big school. Maybe they're not playing. They're caught in that rotation. They transfer down to a smaller program and they're still getting exposure. So trying to create balance in that initiative. And when you talk about being inclusive, we say that diversity is a fact, but inclusion is a choice. You have to include people that don't look like you, that don't have the same experiences, that don't have the same opportunities, and just to continue to balance the playing field, literally, from that regard.
Yeah, I mean, look, I think it's really there are two components: diversity and inclusion. They create that balance. Can you share a success story, if you would, for where football positively impact a young person's life who maybe have been in some of these underserved communities or schools that are not traditionally within the path? And do you have any success stories based upon the work, your engagement?
I mean, I probably want to get their permission to share, but I think that the biggest success stories are the things that happen off the field. When we go to the Senior Bowl or the Combine or any of our initiatives, the draft, there's HBCU students volunteering. Their NFL football operation has a partnership with all the major conferences, SWAC, MEAC, like all the major college conferences. Our intern program is heavily involved with HBCUs. And obviously it's not just about HBCUs specifically, but students of color, students of communities that don't have representation. If you look at the sports business, it's only 25 years old. There's a sports and then there's the business, and you're starting to see this intertwining of both. And most people don't have parents that were college athletic directors, VPs of sponsorship, stadium ticketing. And so there's a ton of kids say, how do I get a job in sports? I was like, well, the sports world is like any world. There's business, there's finance, there's accounting, there's HR, there's all those same functions, especially as these organizations are now being owned by the private equity, and there's a lot of those kind of dollars. So there's KPIs associated with that as well. So um, it's great to see this evolve, but it's great to see that people are conscious of who's being a part of the journey, and it's not just the same people that built the business, but we need to reach out to everyone to get that same exposure and that same opportunity.
Well, and that's why it's so critical for people to be aware of you and your role at the NFL, because many of us think of the NFL and the players, for example, are the people on the field, but having just that representation in the office, if you will, it matters, and it gives people a perspective that there are many career paths. If you get injured, I know a guy who got injured in my college's first year, never could play again. And so there are definitely career paths there. So what advice would you give to some of those young people who may want a career in the NFL, or alternatively start a business that would be from an entrepreneurial perspective inviting or useful to the NFL? Or do you any ideas there?
I've done quite a few panels and some of those things, and I always tell young people, focus on the problem you want to solve and what you're passionate in, and not just the experience. And what I mean by that is there's so many different. You talk about technology is infused into the sports business now, data analytics, uh, uh, everything, PR, marketing, social media. Everyone has a social media manager. Literally every single company
Right.
from Cisco to whoever has a social media manager. And so companies are really sensitive to what are we communicating externally to the public, to the fans, to our content, our customer base, so to speak. So figure out what problem you want to solve. Focus on the passion and what you do well, and not the experience. And what I mean by that is the experience is I've always loved sports. I've always loved to be on the sidelines. It looks pretty cool. It's like, well, it's pretty high stress. I mean, there's volatility. I mean, head coaches and GMs don't last that long if they're not as successful. You're talking about a 3-year stretch on an average. Everyone knows Mike Tomlin, some of these coaches that have been there for a long time, obviously formerly Pete Carroll, Bill Belichick, but most coaches and GMs. And so figure out what you want to do in the business and just be diligent, write letters. If you want to work in the sports business, if you're at a university, start off in college athletics, because that's where you'll learn ticketing, events, game day, logistics, team travel. If you're not doing that in college, it's going to be hard to jump that and just be working in pro sports. So if you want to start off in sports as a young person, I'd say start off in college. And also on the back end, it's not always an advantage that you come from another sports background or another sports organization where you go from Yankees to Mets to Celtics to MLB, NBA. No, it's some people do that, but I'm seeing a lot of hirings from people that have outside of sports experience. They bring in that perspective to the sports business. Because again, it comes back to KPIs, metrics. How are we measuring impact on the things that we're doing? Are we winning games? Are we losing games? What does that impact on the community? If we have stars, like real stars like LeBron, are we making a positive impact on the community for the time that he's there? Because he may be traded or he may be somewhere else next year. So all those things are in consideration. But I would say focus on the passion, what you're good at, and then create a business if you're an entrepreneur around that value offering.
Yeah. And then also I would add, like, in realizing that certain skill sets are commodities that are useful across a variety of industries. So if you're, just because you've done it for one industry doesn't mean you can be excluded from, accomplishing those same successes in the NFL or others. So it's good to have that focus of a broader focus of what your activities and the value it brings. I wanted to switch a little bit to, just our traditional NFL players. And I'm thinking about in our money mindfulness, we talk a little bit about, we talk a lot about actually, managing our resources, managing creating financial pathways for success. And many of our listeners are listeners who maybe could be the first person who graduated from college. The first person who kind of quote a regular office job where they're making a good salary. And I just know in the NFL, there are a lot of first generation 6 and 7 figure earners, if you will. And so I'd love to get your take and your thoughts, given the stories about, with maybe the myths about the NFL players coming in and making lots of money, but then they don't have the money years later, which is maybe somewhat of a myth. But I'd love to get your perspective on the challenges, the financial challenges that individuals face, both in the NFL and others, when they start making a good salary, especially if they're in a first generation earner of a 6 or 7 figure earner in their family, and they're getting calls. I mean, I speak for myself personally. You get calls from people in your family when you reach a level of financial success for, hey, I need a light bill turned on. That's real in our community. So I'd love to get your take on that and how people should manage those challenges and how can they overcome them.
Yeah. Well, fortunately for you, you probably didn't get those calls until you're at least 35 years old and you at least built a scope of work. When you're grinding, when you're an analyst and you're trying to make $100,000 and it's different.
Exactly.
I mean, you could be a highly successful in medical sales. No one knows your name.
Right.
You'd be making $600,000-$700,000 and doing well and going on vacations, and no one knows that. But when you work in pro sports, it's highly visible. Everyone knows that you just got drafted. Everyone knows that you're on that team.
Exactly.
Everyone's proud of you back home. Everyone's rooting for you. But the reality is people always want something from you. Two things I wanted to preface. There was I think it was a Sports Illustrated article in 2002 that was a misquote that 80% of NFL players will either be divorced, have some sort of financial issue, or be unemployed. And so this narrative ran for 20 years, and it was actually false. It was never proven. And so sometimes the fish gets bigger, and you just believe that it was a whale, and it ends up, not being what we thought. But it's really unfortunate that so many people just assume that 80% of players go broke within. I mean, what if you've got real estate that's paying you $15,000 a month in rent, and you're not a W-2 employee, you're not employed,
right?
But you still have income, so there's passive income. So there's things like that. But I think going back to the young, I think we do a lot of society does a lot of unfair criticism to the person, to the victim, if you will. I mean, literally, I've seen it. I was a part of it. You're in high school. You're 15 years old one day. 3 years later, you're in college. 4 years later, you got drafted. Now you're making $500,000 at 22, 23 years old. I mean, I was a third round pick, so I didn't make a lot back then when I first got drafted. But I think, and again, your church, everyone's proud of you, but hey, you're still that little kid from the corner. You're still that little kid in the barbershop. And man, I can't believe. And if you don't see someone every day, 5 years goes by really quickly. And so then you've got to deal with just the expectations that come with that. Stardom. You may be on the 49ers when Joe Montana was on. They said, man, you get to be next to Joe Montana and Jerry Rice every day. It's like, well, I'm still trying to make the team, learn the playbook. I mean, there's such a responsibility that comes with being a young player in the NFL or NBA, any professional sports. There's the social component. You want to go out, you want to have fun. You start meeting rappers, people your age. I was a rookie in '96, so I'm seeing the bad boy artist and people like that, and you're at parties with Jay-Z or whoever, and it's cool because you're 23 years old and you're watching and you're hanging out with people that you listen to in your car. But the other piece of that is you've got predators. You've got people that want to sell you these strip malls and they want to take you to dinner and have women around you and things like that. And so you have to be really mature really early. I think the biggest travesty is obviously as men, women, we're a lot better adults at 45 than we were at 25, right? And certainly than we were at 15, just because you have perspective. It's hard sometimes when you don't have the way you've been able to advise your sons, the way I've advised my sons. I didn't get that advice. I'm sure you didn't get that advice probably when you were that age.
Right, exactly.
We had to create our own opportunities. And so
raised by single parents, and economically challenged environments. Exactly.
I told my mom, I didn't make her feel bad, but I didn't want her to feel bad. But I said, listen, the only thing I learned is don't get a DUI, don't get anybody pregnant, don't flunk out of school. I mean, that's all I learned. I didn't learn about this 97% of things. And
don't call me from jail. That was the other one.
exactly. So if you can get through that, and if you can get to 25 years old without screwing it up, then you'll be okay. But there were lessons upon layers of peeling back that onion that you learned in life as a pro athlete. And look, there were some guys that didn't do well. There were some guys that over borrowed, didn't end up playing as long as they thought they would, and they were over leveraged, and then housing issue and some of those things that are unfortunate. But that happens with everybody. I've seen it happen to Wall Street guys making 700,000 one year and they zero.
Yeah.
But they were living off that 700,000. So sometimes we blame the athlete. Look at those poor kids, but I didn't have a dad that was a wealth manager. I didn't have any uncles that were CEOs that talked about life insurance and the value of credit and don't get a credit card at 22% interest. Like, no one told me that. I had to learn that on my own. So I'm glad that I at least played long enough to just get perspective. And sure, I made a mistake or two, but it didn't cost me everything. It didn't cost me anything. And I was able to live through that and give that perspective to tell all the young people, especially the boys that I raised. You've heard me say this. I mean, we try to be fathers that we never saw every day in our household. I think so. That's important for me to say that on this podcast. But a lot of complex layers there. But I think sometimes we have to give grace to some guys. I think today's pro athlete has a lot of gatekeepers, a lot of people around them, a lot of people advising them. And sometimes, it's by the time you're 30, you don't want to be a 30-year-old, 15-year-old that never grew up because you never paid attention to everything. So, I mean, whatever Joe Louis went through and all these boxers and entertainers and all that, I mean, Sammy Davis Jr., Red Fox, I mean, things that time repeats, history repeats itself. And so I just wanted to make sure that I wasn't going to be a victim of just trusting the wrong people with business jargon that you didn't understand. And when you go back and look at your stuff, you don't have what you thought you had. And so, but it's not as common as people think, but it does happen. I wanted to clarify that as well.
Yeah. And so, like with that environment, the predators, but also the family members who are in need, et cetera. So, well, how would you, what advice would you give to some young people? I know there are many gatekeepers in the NFL, but any young person who's newfound wealth, and that newfound wealth could be $100,000 a year job for some. I mean, let's keep it in perspective. And some maybe making $500,000 or $1 million a year. What advice would you give to these individuals with newfound wealth about their responsibility to sustain, and to protect their resources? Any advice you give them?
Yeah, so I was at West Virginia at the time of this recording. I recently visited Morgantown, West Virginia, University of West Virginia Mountaineers. I flew into Pittsburgh, drove about an hour and 20 minutes to their campus, spoke to the football team, about 110 guys in there, head coach. And these are, probably a dozen young men in that room will probably have a chance to play in the NFL. When you're speaking to a Division I athletes, it's not the 1%. It's probably 10, 20% in that room will be able to play in the NFL. Right. So I told them, I was asked that question. I said, just take time, give yourself time, and give yourself enough time to grow up. We did a financial calculator. I had a guy come up. I said, take 800,000, which is a rookie salary, multiply times 0.6. So that's state, federal. So now you're down to what, 480,000. I said, now let's look at an average lifestyle. I mean, look at your paid over 36 weeks. It literally netted like $12,000 a week for 36 weeks is what you're paid. And I said, now you can blow $10,000 in a weekend pretty quickly. Flights for everyone, hotels, not including dinners, drinks, VIP at the bar. And when you're 22, you want to bring the whole, crew with you. And I said, just make sure that you have long-term goals and make sure that you say, if I want to live like this, what am I going to have to put in the bank? Because then now you got to take 5% of that, or whatever the calculation is. And then, they ask good questions, and it's because of ignorance, and ignorance isn't a bad word, but it's more, I didn't know because no one told me, but now I know I can. So when you know more, you do more. When you know better, you do better, and that's I'm sure you've heard that term. So, I try to educate as many people as I can. And it's not just finance; it's life decisions too. Female decisions, people decisions. If you're 30 years old and your network, I love my barbershop and those things, but if that's still your network, the guys you grew up with, the guys in the barbershop, and you're not really growing as a young man or young woman, then you've got to make sure and reevaluate your what is it? You're the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with.
Yeah.
So those sort of things, I mean, as simple as it sounds, those things are always true.
Yeah. I mean, I love this statement. Like your network is your net worth. It's a reflective of your net worth on something. So if you're staying in that
Yeah.
same group, which also sort of underlays what we talk about here as well. It's just your mind. It colors your mindset. So I'd love to turn our discussion a little bit to mindset. I mean, you've had a successful career both on and off the field. I mean, raised as you were raised in D.C. in the 80s with a single mom. So I want to hear from your perspective, what distinguished you and what mindsets do you believe is essential for, for young adults to achieve goals that, transcends their life, whether in football or otherwise. So, and what's worked for you from a mindset perspective?
I think if I look at the way my mom had me at 20, so if I'm 8 years old, she was 28, and so she was growing into herself as a young woman with no support and no resources, but she was always consistent with me about the message, about the value of being educated, reading. The classroom is the equalizer. I mean, at some point, you're going to be compared to people from, I grew up in DC, Delaware, Maryland, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, California. And so when you meet those people, how are you going to do against them? I mean, all those things that she would tell me. And I think, I give my mom a lot of grace, but she was just she was growing into adulthood herself
Right.
with an 7, 8 year old kid. And so just, I think for me, I paid attention to everything. I was always a learner. I was always curious. I always asked a lot of questions. And I always was a little bit of a truth seeker. Why do things happen? Why is that guy on the street? Does no one care about him? Did he have a mental breakdown? Did he not have any help? Does the government not care? Like I always, but then why is this guy over here really successful? Why does this guy have a Mercedes and this other guy is on the corner? So I would always think about those things. And so when you get to college, you start reading, learning about different things. Oh, one thing I wanted to say, I used to read a lot of James Baldwin. There's a book, I think it's called The Price of the Ticket, and it's Fifth Avenue Uptown. Fifth Avenue Uptown is the Price of the Ticket is like a collection of short stories, and I think Fifth Avenue Uptown is the small short story within the short story, and it talked about like this is like 1955, and he said that we shouldn't celebrate a boxer or Sammy Davis Jr. or Frank Sinatra to make it out of Hoboken when 2000 the other 1999 guys didn't make it out, and they also talked about kids mimic what they see every day. And then if it's negative, you either go with it or you go against it. And it's too much of a risk. I mean, this was 1955 and he was saying this stuff. Of course, talking about boxers and entertainers. And so I always thought about that. Like, so if I ever had that responsibility, my mindset would be to obviously serve the community, to be a good representative of as an African American male who's born in Africa. Like I have foreigners looking up to me that just came here saying, what can I be in this country? I have Black kids in America looking up to me saying, what can I be as an adult? Just showing kids the path, giving them perspective, having grace with them, knowing that their challenges are different than your challenges, but the process is the same. And so those are the things that I would say just from a mindset perspective. And I would tell my mom, I'm glad you told me that, because some kids' parents didn't tell them anything. Don't get nobody pregnant. Don't do drugs. Don't stay out of school.
Exactly.
Some people's parents didn't tell them that. So I appreciate what I learned from that. But again, you also have to continue to educate yourself as well. You have to continue. College is a different adjustment. Being an adult is a different adjustment. Having the right people around you, and obviously, I I was you grow 10 lifetimes playing in an NFL or being a professional athlete in your 20s, but I'm glad I was able to come out of that and continue to strive and be successful and just be able to, have this discussion with you, honestly, on this podcast.
Yeah, well, thanks so much. And like, what's in addition to that? So, what strategies, as those rules of the road that you learned from your mom, if you will? But what strategies do you recommend to your athletes, young people, just to stay focused? I mean, being focused and staying motivated sometimes in the pursuit of goals can be challenging. I mean, so what strategies do you recommend for people, or have you used yourself? Especially when you're facing a setback or a challenge, like when you've been injured significantly in your football career.
Yeah.
So how do you keep up and keep it going and stay focused and stay motivated?
I believe in just creating small disciplines, really within the framework of your responsibilities. And what I mean by that is, if you look at the different wheels, imagine like 8 circle Venn diagrams. So you got your friends, your family, your maybe your social media, your teachers, I mean, all those things you have to manage. And within all those things you have to manage, you start to create little disciplines. How can I be a better student? How can I get my teacher to trust me? How can I be a better friend? How can I be better in the neighborhood? How can I be more helpful if it's time to volunteer for something at church? Like, if you continue to just strive to be better in those little things as they all come together, because how that looks at 15 versus 25 versus 35 is totally different. Now you got bills, life insurance. You're getting older. Your parents are getting older. Maybe some health challenges you're dealing with. I mean, things in the family, your career growth. I mean, you've got to continue to create small disciplines. For me now, it's sleep. I cannot watch the beginning of whatever, the Tonight Show at 11:30. I need to be asleep. I need to be reading something in the
We
morning.
got to go sleep.
My mind has to work. Yeah. So there's different things that I value now that I didn't value as much 10 years ago, and I'm sure 10 years from now it'll be the same. So as long as you're learning and growing, and this world is so big now, there's so much information, and it's right on your phone. But there are also a lot of distractions that obviously come with that. But just be mindful of how you're growing, and you'll know it. Every year is a different challenge. Every year has different issues, no matter throughout life. I don't know if you ever sat and done this exercise. Like, if you remember first grade, second grade, I do this all the time. Third grade, remember my teacher. You start going back through life, and like, man, every year was really different. Then you go through college, and then man, the 20s, and so the older you get, the more you got to remember. But
Right.
it's interesting. It just goes by just like that. And so you just don't want to waste time being involved in things or people or relationships that just aren't fruitful. And as it relates to finance, I mean, I think your financial statement just represents where you were disciplined and where you weren't, what you valued and what you didn't. And for some people, including me, it's a lifelong learning of what to do and how to use your resources, how to get more resources if you don't, how to leverage things. You don't really learn that. I think, sorry if there's a little bit of noise in the background. You don't learn some of those things until you get to a certain age. But I'm glad I have perspective, and I'm glad I'm still learning.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what we're here. That's sort of the genesis behind money mindfulness, because me and people on our Black Millennial Investors Foundation, we've learned through challenges, through experiences, through wins and losses, if you will. And so, but we recognize it's so important to building a strong financial foundation requires, as you said, those little disciplines, those little bit of that focus, that ability to focus, and also retraining your mind about your perspective. I read something recently about you that Roman, that I understand you often. I'm not sure if you still do it in business, but you often recited a poem before big games or big meetings, and I would love it if you could share a portion of that poem for our listeners, and also what this poem means to you and how it's influenced you both on and off the field.
Well, I would say for any of those who pledge the Black Greek letter organization, I'm an alpha, so I have to clarify, and it's Invictus. We all learn it, and it just out of the night that covers me, black as a pit from pole to pole. I think whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the flood clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeons of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate or how charge or punishment the scroll. I'm the master of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul. So any alpha knows that. If you're not an alpha, it's okay. But I would recite that before every poem. I learned it in college. I started doing it then, and I haven't stopped. So it talks about just controlling what you can control. And we talk about out of the night that covers me. This wasn't written for African Americans. When I think of the night, I think of the darkness. I think of dark clouds. I think of dark circumstance. I think about being a minority or someone of minority descent. So it means a lot of different things. But as I've gotten older, it's evolved in terms of how I look at it. So you're always in control of what you can control, and I think life is about how you respond to it, not what actually happens to you. And I tell my boys that all the time.
Yeah, I love it, Roman. I love it. Life is how you respond and not what happens to you. Thank you so much for that. I know we're getting to close of our time here. So thank you so much, Roman. But so lastly, I would love hear from you as you look ahead. I mean, your great career, both on and off the field, engaging, developing programs, being a strategic thought leader for a large organization. What do you hope to leave behind? What's in the future for football and beyond for you?
I just want to continue to leave a legacy of an example of how do you treat people, how do you do things the right way, how do you win, and then the person on the other side of the table wins as well. I mean, I think we live in this world where you want to win at the expense of someone else losing, and I think we just need to be kind. And obviously the most important people I want to impact are the people of my family, my wife, my two boys, my cousins, nieces, nephews, and I want them to, man, Uncle Roman was the greatest, and he cared about people, and I mean, whether or not they write articles about me or get an elementary school named after me or a park or whatever, you got to be like Cicely Tyson or somebody like that, but or people in the arts or people in entertainment. But I just want to leave a legacy out of people that I love the most, people that I serve the most. And just a positive legacy. If you could, 20 years from now, there's a quote that I said something, or someone remembers something I said that made them feel a certain way, or made them feel good about things, or made them change their perspective in a positive way, then I did my job, and it's job well done. That's what we all want to hear when we go, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Leaving a positive impact. Well, thank you so much. You've definitely left a positive impact for us here today. Black Millennial Investors, Money Mindfulness. Thank you so much, Roman Oben, for joining us, and we look forward to what else will be revealed as you continue to impact the lives of the community. So thank you so much.
Thank you, my pleasure.
Sure, man. Listeners, you can also follow Roman on Instagram at r_Oben on Instagram, and check out all the activities that he's involved in. And so we're so pleased that he was with us today. And our listeners, as always, thank you so much for joining us. And before we wrap up the episode, as always, I want to leave you with an affirmation to help you retrain your mind for financial success. I mean, I believe in affirmations and telling yourself, speaking life into yourself. And so our affirmation for today is as follows. I am the master of my fate, the captain of my soul. No matter the challenges I face, I remain unbowed and unbowed. My spirit is unconquerable, and I navigate my financial journey with courage and determination. I embrace my strength and trust in my ability to build a strong financial foundation, making wise decisions and securing my financial health for a prosperous future. So, listeners, and this will, of course, be on our website, but, just as Roman has indicated, feeding your mind is a key component for achieving success. I challenge you to incorporate this affirmation into your daily routine and your life as you navigate your financial journey. So we look forward to you consistently affirming your resilience and commitment to your financial health and your overall well-being. Thank you all for today. Thank you again to Roman Oben. Thanks for all for joining. As always, I'm Andrew Dumas. Thank you for tuning in to the Black Millennial Investors Money Mindfulness Podcast. And until next time, keep your mind on your money and your money on your mind. Take care, and we'll catch you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to Black Millennial Investors Money Mindfulness Podcast. If you would like more information on any of our stories, guests, or even how to share your story, head over to our website at blackmillennialinvestors.com. You'll also find our legal disclaimers and links to our social media pages. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, or your preferred streaming platform. Leave a 5-star review so others can enjoy the show too. Have a great week, and we will see you next episode.
Welcome back, everyone, and I hope you enjoyed this episode of Money Mindfulness. As we wrap up, I want to take a moment to reflect on some key points we discussed today and emphasize their importance in our financial journeys. First and foremost, financial education is crucial for economic empowerment. Understanding how money works for you, how to manage it, and how to make it grow are foundational skills that everyone should have. Unfortunately, financial literacy isn't always taught in schools, which is why it's so important for us to seek out this knowledge ourselves and to share it within our communities. Our emotional relationship with money is another critical aspect to consider. Money isn't just a tool. It's something that can evoke a wide range of emotions, from joy and excitement to stress and anxiety. By understanding our emotional triggers and how they influence our financial decisions, we can start to make more mindful and informed choices. And also, community support can play a vital role in achieving our financial goals. Whether it's through family, friends, or groups like Black Millennial Investors Foundation, having a network of people who understand and support your financial aspirations can make a huge difference. These connections provide not only practical advice, but also emotional encouragement, which is essential for staying motivated and on track. Many people grow up in homes where don't talk about your financial situations. However, open conversations about finances are necessary to break the stigma and alleviate financial anxiety. And some would even say to break generational curses that have been associated with money in your respective families of origin. So talking about money shouldn't be taboo. When we share our experiences and challenges, we can learn from each other and find solutions together. This openness can lead to better financial decisions and a more supportive community. Investing in oneself is the first step towards financial success. And this can mean different things for different people, whether it's furthering your education, developing new skills, or taking care of your mental and physical health. When you invest in yourself, you're better equipped to seize opportunities and navigate financial challenges. I love the acronym SMART, and it's about creating SMART goals. And SMART goals are defined as being specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, which helps in planning and achieving your financial objectives. So setting clear and realistic goals gives you a roadmap to follow and makes it easier to track your progress and celebrate your successes along the way. Multiple streams of income can enhance financial stability. However, unless you have done the work in understanding your emotional triggers, the money can be fleeting. And I can speak from experience. So relying on a single source of income can be risky, especially in today's unpredictable economy. So diversify. So diversifying your income stream can produce and provide a level of emotional stability, as well as it can give you a safety net and open up new opportunities for financial growth and security. But some of the key elements that you need to always consider are budgeting and tracking your expenses, which are essential for maintaining financial health. So, knowing where your money is going helps you make informed decisions and avoid unnecessary debt. It's a simple yet powerful habit that can lead to significant improvements in your financial situation. And finally, mindset shifts can lead to significant changes in financial outcomes. Believing in your ability to achieve financial success. Staying positive and being open to learning and growth are all crucial for making lasting changes. You see, your mindset can either be a barrier or it can be a catalyst for your financial goals. And so try to choose a mindset that is a catalyst. So now let's talk about some practical steps you can take to improve your finances. 1, create a budget. Start by listing all your income sources and expenses. Categorize your spending and identify areas where you can cut back. And then stick to your budget to ensure you're living within your means. 2, build an emergency fund. I mean, life happens, so we have to all be proactively prepared for it. So aim to save at least 6 months, or a minimum 3 months to start, worth of living expenses. And that emergency fund will provide a financial cushion in case of unexpected events, like a job loss, medical emergencies, or some, significant financial hit from your home, your auto, etc. So, it's important to have that cushion. Next, I would say pay off debt. Focus on paying off high interest debt first, such as credit card balances and loans that are, you have that are at a high interest rate. Consider using the snowball or an avalanche method to systematically reduce your debt. Invest regularly. Start investing as early as possible to take advantage of compound interest. Consider a mix of stocks, bonds, and other assets based on your risk tolerance and your financial goals. And those savings could also be in the form of, if you're starting out, and just a CD at your local bank or credit union, certificate of deposit that will give you a set return. That's very low risk. And so if you're just starting out, maybe a CD is the best place to start. But look for other alternative solutions to invest your resources. And next, I would say automate your savings. Set up an automated transfer to your savings account to ensure that you're consistently saving and investing without having to even think about it. It becomes on autopilot. And so you're not worried about it, you're not thinking about it, and it's just always there. And then educate yourself. Continuously seek out financial education resources. Read books, attend workshops, listen to podcasts, and finally, follow reputable financial blogs to stay informed. And then also be like water, as our resident expert, Dr. Krista Malobo, always tells us, be like water. Review and adjust your situation and be agile. Regularly review your financial goals, your financial plan, and make adjustments as needed. Life circumstances change, and your financial plan should be flexible enough to adapt. And then also seek professional advice. If you're unsure about your financial decisions, consider consulting a financial advisor or an organization that supports you in your financial literacy and your financial well-being. They can provide personalized advice and help you create a comprehensive financial plan. Remember, financial education should be accessible to everyone. It's not just about personal gain. It's about empowering entire communities and creating a more equitable society by sharing knowledge and supporting each other. We can all move towards a brighter financial future. Look for us at www.blackmillennialinvestors.com or moneymindfulness.life to get more information and resources to help you in your journey. Thank you for joining us on this episode of Money Mindfulness. Keep learning, keep growing, and remember that you have the power to shape your financial destiny. Until next time, stay mindful and stay financially empowered. I'm Andrew Dumas, and once again, keep your mind on your money and your money on your mind. We'll see you next time.